Welcome to a post-beginner's repertoire testing video. Today we have black against 2041, and we get to play a Sicilian. Finally not a game with c3, excellent. So we can turn towards our beloved dragon. And this, I believe, is the furthest we've gone down the main line, at last. So knight c6 makes sure that we get good versions in comparison to playing bishop g7 right away. And then, are we starting with, is it knight f6 or d6? Because I haven't played this yet, so I don't fully remember all of our detail, but I believe we're saying we hold d6 back because there are times we like to play d5. So it should be knight f6 first. And then, bishop e3. Yes, there's nothing with queen d6 coming up. I think we are just continuing with bishop g7 and most likely castles. And I will figure out whether it's a slow d5 or, sorry, a slow d6 or an aggressive d5. I do think going forward, I'll probably have these games going up twice a week, a little slower than I have been for the first month or so. And this is, I know there's one case where we play d takes, but I think it's much more often b takes. And I don't feel that e5, should ever be correct, but in advance of that, I think I would still prefer to play d6. I think that should be most in line with the way we are meant to play this repertoire. So we'll start with d6, no rush to castle just yet, but we will get there next. Okay. So I think I feel pretty good about this opening. Probably, we guess, pretty much equal. I'm not entirely sure, but I think all the dangerous lines, or the more challenging lines, should be when white castles queenside. I don't recall a time where we allow queen d2 and we can't play h6 in front of it. Is there an argument to play knight g4? Or is that a bad use of time? Let's say bishop g5, bishop f4. Wondering if I would play knight e5. But I don't know that that's actually a good square for the knight. It probably does just end up going in circles. And if not, then I'd think maybe a5 and bishop a6 could be something. I don't think I'm worried about any kind of attack, I would say. Bishop h6. Do we ignore that? Not 100% sure. But yeah, I thought bishop a6, because this bishop doesn't really have a useful square. It's not going to e6, and bishop g4, even h3, kind of shows it to be pointless. Other thought would be we could try rook b8. But then I'm not sure what this bishop is doing long term. I don't really want to push this pawn for bishop b7 and open the d5 square. So I think I'd rather try to trade these two bishops. And I will trade it, actually, because they can't move it away and give up the rook on f1, obviously. And then I'll just have to take a couple more moves to get the rook back into the game if they do capture. Which is fine. I don't think there's a lot of risk of things moving too fast beyond me. So what am I thinking? Do we get something to b8? Okay, this makes it a little easier because we get to play rook b6 right away. Only question is, do we do it right away, or do we trade bishops first? I'm wondering if there's any kind of tactics to look for on the diagonal. I don't think there should be yet. Unfortunately, can't chase this knight away from e4. I think probably rook b6. If they play knight a4, it's fine, because when you move the rook, the queen protects the a5 pawn, and that knight should be pretty out of place. And then, then they would be moving away from that pawn on e4. So we should be good with this. We can safely recapture on g7. If queen d4, it's fine. This knight's not in any trouble. If there is a pin. Yeah, I still think probably not c5. I don't want to allow this knight any of these squares. I don't think there's a benefit other than making the pawns look good. But if the pawn's not being attacked, then I don't mind it being where it is. And they should have some difficulty trying to attack it. I mean, maybe like knight a4, rook moves, and then queen c3. That could be something for them. Wouldn't have time to take here, I think, because of a check at that point. Yeah, so I don't think we can get away with knight takes e4. Queen d4 is probably the big one, because that attacks the rook. So I was planning to just move it. The question is, do we go back? Do we try rook b5? I think probably rook b7 or rook b5, so that we are able to double rooks later on. Maybe the problem with rook b7... it's not really a problem. Queen c3, queen c7. Again, I'm not worried about this knight being pinned. I don't think that's really a problem. Maybe rook b7 now, and then am I less unhappy about c5, queen d7, but then that knight could still pivot back around. I mean, not if there's a queen on c3 would be my point. But if they just play like a b3, I don't know that the b file is very worthy for me anyways. Maybe we'll go rook b5 and I don't know. It looks a little more active. I don't really think I can get something out of rook h5. Okay, they just choose to protect the pawn. They might like to play e5. I don't mind... do I mind knight d7, queen c3 check? Maybe queen c7 first. Just a better square for the queen. Supports a little bit more of the position and lets my second rook come across. And then maybe knight d7. I don't think I am. I don't think I can say I'm better. But I don't really feel like white has good places to point at. I mean, the only thing I have really is there's this kind of weak pawn on a5, but I'm able to defend it pretty comfortably. And then it's just if there's anything about my king that is weaker, which I don't think there is right now. But I think I would like to try to trade this knight, because otherwise, again, rooks on the b file really don't do anything to this pawn on b2. At least if they play b3, maybe that could make things slightly bigger targets. So do I start with the rook? I don't think so. I think I'd rather start with the knight. And then maybe knight c5 is my square. I'm not entirely sure. It's kind of a maneuvering position with not a whole lot happening right now. So I'll have to be more conscious of time now. But we're almost 20 moves in. What do I think? F4, yeah, so they should, I do think, probably be trying to play a5. I could throw in queen a7 check. How useful is that? Versus knight c5. I think they would take that, because otherwise b2 is weak. So takes, push again. I don't know if they can afford to do that. No, not at that point, certainly. How about going forward? Is it dangerous to trade this knight and let them play e5? Well, actually, they're kind of threatening it now. I can't take because my knight would be hanging. So, okay, let's do this. Because technically, if they play knight takes, I don't think there's queen a7, probably b4, but something on that diagonal. So let's be ready for that. And then, yeah, I just need to activate this other rook. Might be able to play something with a4, even if they played b3. That I was not expecting. Can I not just take pawn, queen d4, come back? It would attack c2 if that queen moves, so I think we're going to grab that. And I don't think there's anything with like a knight to d5 if I just move my queen. Or maybe there's knight takes e7. That's interesting. So knight d5, maybe I actually take the knight, they take the rook, I take on e4. And then I have an amazing knight and a couple of pawns for the rook. Yeah, I think I'm okay with that, actually. Because I don't think I can afford to move the queen, allow knight takes e7. I'd have to take, and then give up the rook anyways. But I think I'm okay with that. I don't think there's a reason to play rook b8. I think definitely pawn takes. And yeah, like they can't shake this knight, which means they can't really shake this pawn either. So this is like very good for playing against a rook. Could throw in a4 if I really want to protect that pawn, but I don't have to yet, so I would think, well, rook b8 if I can. If they play rook c1, probably rook c8 for a move, and then reevaluate. And we'll see how easy it is to push this for a win. I think if I can trade queens, I'd be happy to play f5 and then bring the king forward. But I don't know if I want to play f5 with queen still on. So let's start with, yeah, rook b8. And if they want to sacrifice a rook here, I am fine with that. And now I think queen b6 is a very nice square. And then queen b2, most likely. They also have to be scared of this rook. Like knight e6 is a huge threat, so probably either king h1 or the rook moves again. They obviously can't take because knight takes is with check. So I'm thinking I am doing very well. Formally, yeah, it is a knight and 2 pawns for a rook. But I really like the quality of my knight and pawns, unless they get something really fast with g4 and f5, but at this point I don't think I am allowing that. Okay, do we play knight e6? No, because of rook takes pawn. Maybe it's less bad to play f5, but no, I think still I like the looks of queen b2 best. Should be hard to blunder any kind of tactic. Just not 100% sure. Again, something with this g4 and f5. After they protect this pawn on c2, which they do. Is f5 too risky in any way? I don't think so. I mean, the queen can come back to f6, and I think I'm fine with that. But yeah, like a g4 is the only way to try to shake things up, I would say. Pushing this pawn doesn't really do anything. I mean, c3 sure, but then I can play b3 or even take on a3. And then just keep my nerve with low time on the clock. Because yeah, it's hard to activate my rook, unfortunately, although I did realize that my knight is kind of freed up. If I can think of a better place for it, it's kind of hard. Like, this is really its best square. It would be more, I think, to get it out of the way and maybe try to play rook c8, attack c2. Not sure if that goes very far, though. Okay, so maybe they do want to play h3. Okay, we'll do this first. That's fine. And I think we'll start in 86. Takes, a check is fine. I don't think I should be getting mated. I think worst case I can definitely run all the way to e8 and then to d7, which might actually be a very nice pocket for the king. And then they might open themselves up to some checks of my own, if not just rook takes c2. So queen g3 does threaten mate on g8, but I think just a calm king move. I don't think we need to burn our check yet. And I don't think I need to care. Maybe the h7 pawn leads to the f5 pawn. That could be a little annoying. But definitely not mated, and their time is ticking down as well. Yeah, I think that's my only regret, is maybe I lose the h-pawn, but trading queens I don't think bothers me. I think I'm happy about that. And then just rook c3. Where do I take on f4? I think we'll start rook c3 and then take on f4 next. And then there's not really like a rook f1, try to win f5, because I can probably take on h3. Depends, as long as the knight doesn't get trapped over there. And rook f2 blunders quite terribly. Okay, so do I hide on d7 now, or do I come back and hold the king side? I think we'll go this way. Maybe I should have done the other way, but okay. Do we just take that, or do we take on a3? Okay, I think we have to take that. And then one check, and then we're always in time for the rook to get in front of that pawn. Their king can't come very far forward, so that helps. And then I should just have too many pawns. The knight can come back to help defend as well, and if it's a knight and these 4 pawns in the center, then that should be a pretty straightforward win. So let's be really safe and guard the 7th rank. And I think rook b7. And then just try to connect this knight to that b pawn. So I think we would start knight d5. For what it's worth, it stops b6, but I don't think that's ever a problem. Just have to be a little careful about b6 and rook a7. But in the absence of those kinds of things, I can start moving with my pawns. I think I want to get my knight. That's not amazing, is it? Okay, I have knight f6 if they give a check. In the absence of their threats, I can start moving with my own pawns. I just don't love that I've pinned myself over here. That was kind of dumb. And I should probably have played rook b6 as well, just to stop this pawn from going any further. Slightly careless, yeah, on my part. But on the other hand, if I move king up, this rook is in no position to help their passed pawn, so they have to guard a lot against knight d5, which right now there's rook takes d6. But that is okay, because our threat should be king g5 and then knight d5. And if they do that, then we just go catch that pawn. We're also threatening knight c3, which they might miss. Like rook h5, king g6, and there's a threat to win both rooks. Exactly. So I guess rook h3, but then I could push one of these pawns, but that makes it really easy. Okay, so last pawn is not a threat. I'm sure I could give my rook up for that pawn at a number of points and be completely winning. But I guess the simplest is to walk the king over and take it. Okay. Not a bad game. So Sicilian, where, yeah, I have to revisit my mainline theory because we have not gotten to test this in one of these games yet. So I will check right away. Actually, we'll do it right now. So mainline hyper accelerated dragon, where we got takes, and knight c3. Okay, so we are actually supposed to play bishop g7 first. Okay, yeah, because we're attacking this knight and then sort of forcing them to react to it, whether that's taking the knight or protecting it. So let's check if there is a big downside to knight f6. It might be something with takes on c6 and then pushes e5, which of course we spend most of the chapter being aware of. We'll wait until we come back, I think. Because as is, yeah, it looks like we are transposing now, because we played knight f6, bishop g7 anyways. Then they took and played bishop c4. So how far do we get with that? Takes, and no, the only comment here is if they play e5, then we have time to come back to g8. But they did not do that. They played bishop c4 on move 8. And I don't know if that would transpose anywhere else. Like, does that show up at bishop c4? Did they ever take after that? No? Yeah, they don't really. So I think those are two different directions that are coming back together. So we'll check exactly what we're supposed to do with that, but didn't feel like it should be all that pressing. a5, because I wanted to trade this bishop. We let them trade over there, and like, I don't think I was in danger during the game. think we're okay to play all of this. They could have thrown in checks at a couple times, but we still just put the king back on g8, and I have to think that knight c3 just doesn't work. I don't know how deeply they thought it through. I wasn't fully sure of the consequences of this in playing rook to b2 yet, but before they played knight d5, I had definitely figured out that I thought I was okay with it. And they don't have any other knight moves, like nothing else actually makes a threat. Knight b5, the rook comes back and takes it. Knight a4, I think just knight takes a4. It's probably easiest. And we've just won a pawn. So they had to try that if they wanted to play this idea, but takes, and yeah, we have enough material, and as I said, it was, I thought, very good material. And a bit of a struggle to try to activate these pieces, do something productive, while also trying to hold together everything in the center, because the b-file, I unfortunately don't have any entry squares. And I don't think there are any tactics with like a knight b3 or something ridiculous like that, knight d3, because this rook is protected on d2. I was hoping I could trade queens as well, so maybe with respect to that, knight e6 first, and then try to play queen b6. That might have been a better way to do it. It's knight e6 first. Because this was a little slower for that, but even trying to be aware of all this, I didn't think it was that big a danger, but just if they had played queen g8, king d7, take on h7. At which point I was sort of wondering rook h8, but no, I think queen takes f5 and rook takes c4 is a pretty big threat. So I think I would have to be very careful to keep this f5 pawn. I think that's a really important one, but I think we should be able to do that. And like we could also take the pawn on c2 potentially as well. So we'll check if we've played it decently enough up to that point, and then I thought the endgame was pretty reasonable. Had to be concerned about this extra b pawn. So I do think in retrospect, yeah, just rook c6 and rook b6. Like as a rule, don't let the pawn advance further than you have to. So I was a little lax with that. I let it go one square beyond where maybe I should have. But they weren't able to play b6 and rook a7, anything like that. Because if you, of course, take the rook on a7, they get a fully outside passed pawn. That, I think, would be a significant problem. Just that it might be uncomfortable to protect the rook where it is because of the way I chose to move this knight around. Like, my other thought was, okay, I could also play knight d3, then to c5, and just really lock in on b7. Which I think in retrospect I prefer, just to get that knight to a solid square. Because I didn't quite end up with that the way I was playing this, but at the same time, I just have so many pawns and white only has one. So they shouldn't really be able to make big threats. Okay. So back to here, and we do not have an analysis run this time. It's been a while. Okay, so here. Knight f6, yeah, okay, is a small inaccuracy. Is it e5 where I'm seeing trading queens? Yeah, because if we play b takes, which we almost always do, then yeah, they can play e5, and we can get into some trouble because we just don't have a great move for the knight. So that was me forgetting that part of the theory. In the main line, okay, we do actually play bishop g7 here against this knight c3. And if you play d takes, then yeah, you have to trade queens, and it's a little less good for black, because in part because we can't castle, but might have turned to that if I had started looking at e5 here, not sure. But they did not do that, so we got to come back. This definitely is in the repertoire. And then takes, yeah, it's not their strongest way to play, most likely. So let me double check on this now. So it's here. Yep, so time on f3 and time on bishop c4, that's right. Okay. But as far as the opening, yeah, that's as far as it was supposed to go. So we got takes, b takes. They didn't try e5, which I did say that's where you can play the knight back to g8 and still be doing okay. Bishop c4, and yeah, we can start to make the argument that black's a little better. I will point out on the scores we're doing anywhere from 5 to 10% better, which is an excellent sign. So even if we're holding it about equal, a5, yeah, that's fine. And we did have a moment we could have played knight g4. It looks like in combination with a4. So yeah, h3 for white is just to take away that square from a couple of our pieces, the knight and the bishop. What exactly makes this worth half a pawn? If we we say bishop f4. a4 is just the type of move that really freezes the white queen side. These pawns have more trouble moving with that pawn cramping it in. Okay, I'm seeing some queen a5, so that calls back to our Maroczy stuff, where we play a5, a4, and we play queen a5. So it turns out we could have used that here as well. And if they play h3, then yeah, we can come to e5, gain a tempo on this bishop, which, for what it's worth, can't go to b3. And then something like this I can definitely see being good for black. I can imagine bishop a6 being good now. A nice cutting bishop, yeah, okay, I can see that being good for black for sure. So small inaccuracy, well, a full inaccuracy there to allow the trade of rooks, but still equal. And yeah, okay, trading bishops. And there are at least a couple points in the repertoire we say, yes, you can do this when the queen does not have any help as far as an attack. So I was thinking of that here. I just didn't fully commit to it, it looks like. In comparison to, yeah, trying to play on the b file, but it does just turn out to be equal. A couple of rook moves look similar. e5, queen c7. Okay, so definitely not better. Maybe we let white push a little bit if they had played things better. But not with f4, either with b3. Yeah, I'd said that a couple times where they can try to solidify the queen side that way, because that frees up this knight again. And now if we play knight c5, yeah, now is a better illustration where they don't have to take it, they can just move the knight. And I think that, yeah, would be slightly in favor of white, because it's harder for me to, again, make progress on the queen side. Whereas the way the game went, I did feel for sure they should probably be taking that. I guess, sure, they could throw in c4, but really they do have to take this, because otherwise this pawn is just lost, and I don't think you ever would accept this as being correct for white. Not with the shape of those a-pawns. But they did not do that. Let me briefly show this, I guess. Takes. Yeah, I'm still pretty close to equal, but I wouldn't have minded my chances at continuing to play that game. But they went back, and yeah, we can and should grab this pawn. Check, comes back. They can try knight d5, but we don't need to panic. We just take that and understand that this is still a very good position for black. Yeah, it's not nearly as scared about playing f5, it looks like. It seems like I could do that at just about any time, but I was holding off on it because I didn't feel I had to. Queen e3 looks like a good move for them. Oh, that is actually a good point. If the king moves, then I do get a tactic, knight b3, with a fork and also my queen attacking that rook. So it would have been fun to see if I spotted that, but they more correctly played queen e3. And then, yeah, I can play, again, f5. It's kind of insisting at this point. Which, like, yeah, at this point I was thinking, okay, there's no queen b3 check. There really shouldn't be any risk on the diagonal, but I don't know. I felt more inclined towards pieces first, but turns out that it gives them more of an opportunity to play g4. Like, I didn't really think they had to play h3 right away, but they chose to slow play it. And I would start having to be a little more accurate. I believe I was intending queen f6, which that's kind of cool to see shows up here. Just consolidates, reinforces everything that needs to be. But they slow played. Rook c8 even looks like a really good move. I think my retrospective was maybe knight e6, because I wanted to play queen b6. g4, can we get away with this here? Not as good. I think it's because if we trade queens and everything else, there's going to be rook to d5. And that's a bit of a problem that we're losing our pawns, because as I explained a bunch of times, this pawn is really important, but if we lose the a-pawn, they get a passed pawn. So yeah, okay, I would not have been able to be quite so hasty with that. Maybe it's our big difference with king f7. I mean, we're just getting off the g file, so that they won't be playing checks when they come over there. And there definitely are still cases where we might play queen b6. But yeah, basically we just have to be aware of these possibilities for rook d5 and attacking our most vulnerable pawns. But that is not the way the game went. King f7, knight e6, kind of similar. What's our difference? Super low depth, but what's our difference between king f7 and king f8? Yeah, okay, quickly catches up. That doesn't seem like there should be much of a difference between those two. I think we're likely going to e8 anyways, yeah, because we can't really cover the g8 square. So our only other option is to keep running the king. But it is a good shelter. I think our last really big point was if they give a check and then take on h7. What are we doing here? Knight d4, that's a very nice move. I was thinking mostly about queen checks, but knight d4 number 1 protects the pawn, and it's not that easy to chase the knight, and there's also the chance that this knight comes up to f5, or f3. So yeah, I like that move a lot. That really locks down everything, it seems like. But they offered a queen trade, which I was happy to see. I'd been thinking about that for a while. And then does anything else flag here? We could have pushed the pawn right away, but I think grabbing a pawn with check is fair enough. And yeah, same kind of thing. We could choose to be more aggressive. I was wondering about maybe rook f3 check, but I didn't quite see the pattern to collect the white king in a net, so I decided to play it safer. Again, I do think maybe rook c6 is a little bit more practical to stop the pawn on b6 instead of letting it go to one extra square. But still good enough. Still nothing that looks like it's causing problems. Rook f6, or sorry, knight f6, of course, because we're not going to let them take the pawn on h7. But once you see that, yeah, there's really not a lot for white to do. Their rooks are completely disconnected, and then it only takes one more move for things to really fall apart. Okay, so if we are looking back at this, I think my one little mistake was, yeah, I forgot that we're supposed to play bishop g7 before knight f6, but the way it turned out was the way it's supposed to. And then they deviated. This isn't a very common way of playing a couple of the common patterns, so that let me have full equality, even a little bit better. Then there were a couple of these little misses. For example, knight to g4 here would have been strong with the a4 and queen a5 thing. Or here as well, that we could have grabbed that bishop and sort of misplaced their queen. Because if it's on its own, it's not very effective, so it probably has to spend time coming back. But other than that, I don't think I had any real concerns. So I think I'm pretty happy with that game, especially for me, what's kind of an unfamiliar line. So, good place to wrap that up. Let me know if you have any questions or comments. If you've made it this far, definitely leave a like or comment to let me know that you got this far. We'll stop there and see you for the next game.